Sup and welcome back to the Abidos Card Shop. Today we're going to be talking about 5 tips and tricks to level up your dual mobs play. Your deck plays a major role in how well you're going to do when playing dual mobs. So you want to build a good balanced deck, and a balanced deck means a few different things. So one is having a balance between mobs and the support cards, the magics, traps, and equipments. So you don't want to have too many support cards and not enough mobs, and really, as a rule of thumb, you kind of want at least 50% mobs or slightly more. This is my deck, I'm playing a 15/12 ratio, but at least if you're doing 50% mobs, that's kind of the minimum you want to do, because mobs are the basis of dealing damage and defending your life points. Another thing is playing multiples. You see I'm playing multiple sets of cards, so there's a few reasons for that, just because these are cards that I like using. Piglin, for instance, has reach, and he can take out a lot of those pesky flyers, and Ghast is one of the best flyers. Snowman destroys a biome card, and he's got a big meaty attack for 4. And Hoglins, although they go to defense after, they have a really big attack that takes care of a lot of problems. And then my magma cubes take care of my defensive needs, with the brute to take care of big hitting attacks when I do get them out. So playing multiples gives your deck consistency, and having consistency in a deck is also really important, because it'll allow you to learn your deck and know what you're going to be able to do in most situations. If your deck is all over the board and you're playing 15 different mobs, knowing how you can strategize in certain situations is going to be a lot more difficult when you have no idea what you're going to possibly draw next. So running multiples is a good idea as well if you're looking for consistency. Another thing you've got to be paying attention to when it comes to building a balanced deck is being mindful of dead draws. So things like equipment cards are considered dead draws. They may be fantastic, but if you're top decking, you have no cards on the field or in your hand, and you're drawing for your life, these are all cards that will absolutely screw you if you draw. So you don't want to have a huge balance of them. And even a lot of magic and traps can be considered dead draws. Like, for instance, Dripstone Pit isn't going to save you if your opponent's already kicking your butt. Neither is a Strength Potion. Lightning Bolt can definitely save you. And things like Regen Potion are not considered dead draws, because they'll be able to save your butt, even TNT. But when you're building a deck, you want at least 50% mobs. Try to have multiples if you can for consistency, and try not to run too many equipment cards. Like, I would say 4 is kind of getting to higher levels, but yeah, that's kind of up to you guys. Knowing what your cards can do is the best way to strategize. If you don't know what your cards do, then it's not going to be as easy to strategize against your opponent's plays. So in this case of this Ghast, we have a flyer with burn 2. When Ghast destroys a mob as a result of battle, you may deal burn damage to target mob or player, and in this case the burn is 2. So Ghast can either attack the opponent directly and deal 2 damage, or Ghast can actually attack the spider, kill the spider. Since its attack is 2, it's going to deal 1 damage to the opponent for dealing damage over the spider, and the spider would be destroyed as a result of battle with the Ghast, setting off the burn damage. And now that burn can be either applied to the husk to neutralize your opponent's field, or to your opponent, now dealing 3 damage to your opponent in total and getting rid of the spider, versus just doing the 2 from attacking directly. Here's another prime example of knowing what your cards can do, making the difference between life and death. So here we have a husk, attack value of 2, battling a snowman, and we've got a splash harming, which deals 3 damage to target mob or player, and this damage can stack with other damage. So we've got an attack value of 4, meaning we can't just splash that thing to death, but it can stack with damage. So you can actually attack the snowman with the husk. The husk is going to deal 2 damage to the snowman. The snowman's going to deal 2 damage to the husk, which will deal 2 damage to you and kill the husk. But you can chain the splash harming and deal 3 damage to the snowman, and now you've dealt 5 damage to the snowman, which is enough to take out the snowman. And instead of you getting murdered on your next turn, they don't have a snowman for their next turn. So small things like that can make just a huge difference. If you don't know what one of your cards can do because the effect is a bit confusing, just ask one of the other players. Understanding advantage is one of the most important things a player can learn about this game in order to level up their play. Knowing and understanding and recognizing who has advantage can determine when you want to play specific cards. So for instance, in this case, when my opponent controls just a plethora of cards on the field, playing something like the lightning bolt is definitely something that you want to do. But if you're this guy over here and your field is stacked, you've got back row to the hilt and they've got one mob in defense, you're not going to want to play cards like lightning bolt because you've got the advantage. So understanding the two different types of advantage is important. So one, hand advantage. Whoever has the most cards in hand has an advantage over their opponent. And that's what makes cards like regen potions so incredibly powerful, because it instantly gives you one extra card in your hand and gives you instant hand advantage over your opponent. And one extra card, especially early game, represents 25% of the cards that you have in your arsenal. So it's a huge deal to have hand advantage and a huge deal to have field advantage too. When it comes to tracking hand advantage, your opponent must tell you at all times if you ask how many cards are in their hand. So if you ask them how many cards in your hand, they can't say to you, oh no, it's a secret. No, it's just a rule in every trading card game that the number of cards in your graveyard and the number of cards in your hand are open at all times, and same with the back row. The back row can sometimes be a little bit hard to tell. You can kind of see the edges of the item frames. And if there's no back row, like here you can see I have one card in the middle, you can see where once we've played this game enough, we can kind of see where the back row is, which kind of help with that. But so knowing hand advantage, you can just ask your opponent and they'll tell you, and then you'll know whether you have advantage or not. When it comes to field advantage, looking for situations where you can get more cards for the price of one, like the lightning bolt or TNTing mobs that have a bunch of equipments. Those things can kind of even the odds out and kind of get the advantage back into your favor. So kind of look for those kind of plays that can give you advantage, because if you have advantage and you're forcing your opponent to react to your moves instead of you reacting to your opponent's moves, you're going to be in better shape and you're probably going to win every time. A wise ancient duelist once said, "You must first watch 100 games, then you must lose 100 games, and then finally you are ready to play 100 games." Losing in duel mobs is part of playing the game. You are going to lose a lot of games, especially when you start. You're going to lose like the vast majority of them. And if you're losing, you are learning. And the best way to learn is to play better people. See what they're doing, see how they're strategizing, see what kind of cards they're using, what combos, what things are working for them. The greatest PvPers in the entire world didn't get there from beating up noobs all day. They would have played people that were way better than them and learned from those people. And it's the same with duel mobs. If you're playing people who are better than you, you're going to learn from them. So definitely play everybody. Although undeniably the cheesiest tip of them all, it is actually probably the most important one, because I've seen too many battles where one of the players goes in and they already feel like they're defeated before they've even drawn their first 3 cards. They feel like because their opponent plays with the lightning bolt that they stand no chance against them, and that's not the case at all. Like, people of all deck styles here can win because we're only running about 100 unique cards right now. Your opponent is running a lot of the same stuff as you, regardless of whether they play one powerful ultra rare that you don't have yet. And so if you're telling yourself before the game even starts that you don't stand a chance, you're going to play more defensively, you're going to just play poorly with that mindset. And you do definitely have the deck and the cards to beat any opponent in here. And I've seen even some of the best duelists here dead draw and just get terrible hands. So even the worst duelist here can technically beat the best duelist here. The game is right now in its infancy and balanced enough that that can happen and does happen. So it's not going to happen if you don't believe in yourself and you don't believe in the cards that you put in that deck. And if you feel like your deck is just doing crappy, take it to the card shop and somebody here will be happy to help you kind of work through it. We've got a whole bin of donations. We can, help you work with your deck and make it a bit stronger. Well, that was 5 tips and tricks to level up your Duel Mobs play. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you want to see more content like this, we're going to be uploading more Duel Mobs footage in the future, so be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more in the future. Thanks for watching!